Good job.
Hi.
Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. If it's your first time here and you enjoy reptiles and having a good laugh, then subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell. Hit that notification bell.
Yeah.
All these videos are me showing you how I do things based on my own experience. Before you get a snake, or any animal for that matter, you should do the research and make sure that you are able to take care of that animal properly. Let's go. So today I'm going to tell you my story about how I got into reptiles, snakes, and all that fun stuff. So it all started about 7 years ago. I had a pet bunny named Rufio, and he was this bunny that I got kind of as a rescue, and he was the cutest he was a lion head, little scruffy bunny, and he was a little older, but I don't know, someone just didn't want him. I got him from a girl that rescues animals. I named him Rufio, and he lived with me inside my little hair salon. He would follow me around everywhere, and I'd have little food in my pocket that I would always feed him, so we were just always together, and he would follow me like a little puppy without a leash or anything. I could go outside and he'd follow me on the sidewalk, and he was wonderful. After I had him for about a year, I was getting really sick because it was affecting my allergies. I'm allergic to cats, dogs, birds, all sorts of stuff, which sucks because it's like I've always loved animals. So I had to give Rufio away, and that was sad. But then I figured, well, what kind of animal can I have? So I thought maybe a turtle. And then I learned the difference between turtles and tortoises. So turtles stay in the water and tortoises stay on the ground. So, and then terrafins kind of do in between. But I did the research and figured what I wanted was a golden Greek tortoise. Golden Greek tortoises are really beautiful and they don't get super big. Sulcatas are awesome, but they get really big, and any tortoise you get is going to live a long time. So you should always think about what's going to happen later. I've always looked at animals in the way that I see an animal, it's very easy for me to be like, ooh, I want that animal, like sugar gliders or African gray parrot. But would I really be able to take care of it? Would I really be able to give it what it needs? And if I'm not able to do that, or I don't think I'm willing to put the time in, then I can't get that animal. And that's okay. I think that's the more responsible thing to do than be like, oh, it's cute, I like it, I want it. Which I have done in the past, but it's just, you want to do what's best for the animal. So I ended up doing research to get this golden Greek tortoise. I'd never been to a reptile show ever, so I was very excited. There was one coming up in about like 3 months or whatever, so I thought about it almost every day. I was just like, you know, I can't wait for the reptile show to come because I'm going to finally get my golden Greek tortoise. It's going to be awesome. Anyways, I went to my first reptile show, and there were barely any tortoises. There was definitely no golden Greeks, and I was a little terrified because there were just snakes everywhere. There were like thousands of snakes, and I'm just like, this should be called a snake show, not a reptile show. But anyways, I was disappointed, but I had money. I had saved up some money. I had a setup. I had all the things I needed, and I'm just like, maybe I'll just learn about snakes. So I had this misconception that snakes get bigger, and they get bigger, and then eventually you have to get rid of them, or that's why people get rid of them, because they have a snake, it's cute, it's small, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they have to get rid of it. So I honestly thought that, and there are a lot of misconceptions around snakes and the weird ideas that people have about them that come up in their imagination. I'd say the top 5 questions that I get anytime I go for a walk with a snake or anything is, aren't you afraid it's going to kill you? Does it have teeth? Does it bite? Does it have venom? Did you remove the fangs? Did you remove the teeth? That's the other one. Did you remove its teeth? And I'll just always be like, do you bite? It's like, we all can bite, but we use our mouths to eat food and generally don't bite other people. So it's just the same thing with snakes. They have teeth and they have a purpose, but they don't go around just trying to bite people for the most part, hopefully. At least not mine. Anyway, so I walked around his show and I learned a pile about snakes. I learned about corn snakes, king snakes, ball pythons, and boas. Those were basically the main snakes that you see. Ball pythons get about like 5 feet, which is like that. So that seemed like something pretty manageable. And boas kind of scared me because I saw like some big ones. I just thought, oh, I wouldn't want to be bit by one of those or anything. And some kid that was probably about like 16 years old was handing some ball pythons for people to hold. And I was like, why not? I'll do it. If this kid can hold it, I can hold it. So I put my hands in a bowl for him, and he put this snake in my hands, and I was shaking. I was just like, oh no, it's gonna bite me. But it didn't bite me, and the more I held it and the more time went by, all of a sudden something happened where it was just like the fear turned into fascination. And then I was just like, he was like, oh, I'll sell you that one for, if you want, for $300. And I'm just like, now I kind of wanted one, but I wanted to go look at all the ones there because I had a couple hours. Why not? So I looked around the whole show and I found this one snake that I was just like, this snake's beautiful. I want that one. And I ended up getting him. And that was 7 years ago, and I named him Theseus, and I still have him. And it's pretty crazy that specifically out of all the snakes, the one that I picked is, what do you think it is? None other than the notorious spider ball python. So, guess who's here to visit us? What? What? What are you saying? Eat? Yum yum yum?
Yeah.
You want to eat?
Yeah.
You want me to make you some food?
Yes.
So that's what I get. You watch cartoons,
What?
and then you come to me when you want to eat. Eat, yum, yum, yum. Okay, I'll feed you. So I've been commanded to make my daughter food, so I'll see you in a bit. What's that? Is it yummy? Is it yummy? Say thank you, Mommy.
Mommy.
Say thank you, Mommy.
Take.
Thank you.
Take.
Thank you, Mommy. Had to take a break to eat some food.
No.
You want to say anything? You want to tell them anything?
Yeah.
How did you get into snakes? How did you learn about snakes?
I shake. So I shake. Shake.
How did you learn about snakes?
I shake. Shake. This is that also.
What favorite color snake?
Right.
You like the white snake? Why?
Huh?
Why?
Then why?
Do you like the black one? Or the yellow one?
Yeah.
Do you like the yellow one?
Yeah.
You made a mess.
But.
A little bit of a mess?
No.
Well, here you go. You can wipe clean if you get messy.
Messy.
Yeah, you have to be careful.
Careful.
Yeah? Yummy?
Yummy.
That's good.
Let me shake and shake.
Okay.
And shake.
So it just so happens that my very first ball python, and it's just funny that it would be me, because this kind of stuff always happens to me, that I end up being the person that something terrible happens to, or whatever. And I don't think there's really anything terrible about having a spider ball python. So this is Theseus. He's my first snake, and I ended up buying him that day, and I had so much fun with him. He was my only snake for about a year, and I had so much fun with him. And I used to like pretending I was like English or something, so I'd be like, "Hello, nice to meet you, I'm Matthias, and this is my snake, Theseus." And he's a spider ball python. And he's been great. He's always been healthy, eating nicely, and he does have the little bit of a head wobble. Now, see, when this snake was sold to me, no one told me that spider ball pythons have a neurological disorder. And so I didn't even really know. When he kind of shakes his head when I'm gonna feed him and gets excited, I thought it was kind of cute. Like when it's feeding time, he's like, food. But I had him now for 7 years, and he's been a delightful, wonderful pet. And to me, if an animal's in pain, if we were breeding certain snakes and they all had kinked tails, or they had missing an eye, like a defect, there's a big difference between a physical defect and a neurological defect. Okay, like imagine if people from two different nationalities bred and they just made people that were missing an arm or missing a leg or something. You probably wouldn't want those people to breed with each other. With the ball pythons, with the spiders, it's not a physical defect. It's a neurological one. So to me, I've dealt with a lot of animals now over 7 years, and I've dealt with rescues that had mites. I've dealt with mouth infections and all sorts of different things. And when a snake has something that's actually really wrong with it, like an issue, they are not in they have a really negative attitude. They're really kind of like frustrated. They're scared, and they'll not be happy, and they'll show it. So when you try to grab them, they'll strike at you. They'll be defensive. And to me, when something's off with an animal, that's usually what ends up happening. You end up getting an animal that's scared, afraid, and striking at you. Now, when it comes to the spider ball pythons, I feel differently. Like, I don't think that it is wrong to work with them, to breed them, to keep them, because first of all, I think they're beautiful, which is not a good excuse, but I think that they have their place. A world that doesn't have any spider ball pythons, to me, is not really a better world. I think it's kind of almost unfair to say that they shouldn't be able to be produced, that they shouldn't be able to be sold, that they shouldn't be able to be cared for. Like, this snake has brought so much joy in my life, and I think that I've taken really good care of him. He's been pretty happy. He's bred a few times, and I'm not really breeding him anymore because now I have his offspring that are getting older. But when you take a spider and you breed it to anything, any of the snakes that don't have the spider gene, they're still produced by the spider. They still came through that whatever it is. And so anything that doesn't have the spider gene that was produced from the spider is totally fine. So it's not like it's passing it on to every baby. It's only passing it on specifically to the ones that are showing the spider gene. And then from these babies, raising now a few batches of them, I haven't had any that have been super terrible. I've seen videos of some people with their snakes doing all sorts of crazy things. But mine personally, like, I'll show you one of his babies that I kept. And it's basically Avery's favorite snake. It's called a queen bee. Here we have a baby one. So you can see that's a queen bee. And this one eats fine. I don't seem like the wobbling is more my hand than the snake. But this snake eats totally fine. Actually, like this one and a bumblebee from that litter, they eat great. So I actually find that when I compare the snakes that have the spider gene to the other snakes, they actually eat better and they thrive better. So in the wild, a snake that eats well and breeds well is going to survive better. So if in the wild, which is where they came from, they survived, then to me they deserve their place. Does that mean to go and just make nothing but spiders or something? Like, no. Like, to me, I don't look at it like breeding spiders for a living or anything. Like, I am breeding boas mostly, and for all the animals that I care for, I try to give them a good life, that they nice and clean, that they get some time out, and that I grow them slowly. And for instance, if there was something really bad with the gene, do you think that I would want to keep it for myself? Like, I kept this snake for myself, and this is probably my favorite ball python that I've produced, and it makes me extra happy because it comes from Theseus, my first snake. And when you look at the way that it behaves, like, I can just grab a normal ball python and you don't see a big difference. Like, does that seem like a snake that can't eat, that doesn't deserve to live, that no one should, like, breed or have? I don't know, that's just my personal opinion on the spider ball python. And that's like a totally different video to maybe talk about, but have it in there anyways. So yeah, I'm a big bad spider ball python breeder. But to me, anyone that buys a spider ball python, I'll tell them spider ball pythons have a little bit of a neurological disorder where their head shakes. And then they can choose for themselves if that's what they want to get. Like, I look at this snake, the way it behaves, the way it eats, the way it moves. This snake to me moves just as good as any other snake. Lots of times even better. So, and I'm not hiding some crazy spider ball pythons that are twisting and doing all sorts of crazy things like I have right now. So you saw the first one, this is the second, you saw the third. I have two other ones that have spider gene in them, and I'll show them to you. And that's basically all my spiders. So this is another just plain spider. So this would be basically what my first snake was. And they eat perfectly. They move nicely. Like, years ago, reptiles were not as popular, and not everyone had a pile of opinions on them that were just based off of how they feel. And to me, that's what's really happening with the spider gene. Some, like, keyboard warriors that don't even have snakes or are into them and have one, and then they learn about it, and they get this feeling like they're being all high mighty or like righteous or something, and they're just like, oh no, we shouldn't do that, that's terrible. And then people are getting on that bandwagon. But it's just like, you look at this snake, and I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't see a snake that's in pain. I don't see a snake that's struggling to survive. I don't see, like, defects. I kind of look at it like maybe a kid with ADD. I have ADD. Should I not be allowed to have children? I have ADD. I have borderline personality disorder, and my wife has some mental disorders too. And we made a beautiful baby. So, is my baby abomination to humans? Like, you look at this, there's a bumblebee. So you just saw 1, 2, 3, 4. You saw 5 spider ball pythons. And, I don't see the issues here. I just see beautiful snakes. I am shaking, like my hand is shaking. Like, you look at it and it's not shaking. Like, I can't even like, I'm trying to flip it upside down, and it just kind of flips itself back over. So, that's how I feel about the spider ball pythons. To me, there's so much information out there about all these reptiles, and it's up to you to do your research and make choices. And any breeders should kind of do the same and learn about them. Back to what ended up happening. So I got Theseus. He was my first snake. I had so much fun with him for about a year that I started going to every single reptile show. So for about 7 years, I've gone to every single reptile show, and I ended up buying the prettiest snake that I could afford. Every show, I'd look at every single animal, and I'd look for, like, that one. And if I found it, I got it. And if I didn't find it, then I wouldn't get it. But that's how I've started my whole collection. It was basically by picking out snakes that I thought were beautiful. And I didn't know much about genetics or how things worked. It's Steve. It's Steve now. I named Eve Steve. So she was my second snake. And I just got the prettiest snakes I could find. So this is Steve, who was Eve for about 6-7 years. He's in a shed right now, so he doesn't even look as pretty as he usually does, but he's a Texas leucistic rat snake. He's from my most popular video, which he eats a rat out of my hand. But he was my second snake, and he bit me every time I picked him up. He bit me probably like 5 times. For 3 months, I held him about every day, and he bit me over and over and over again, and now I can basically do anything with him, and he is totally fine. He won't ever try to bite me or be aggressive or defensive or anything. He'll sometimes shake his tail, but he's a sweetheart. Okay, so then what ended up happening was I held, and this is what does it, I think, for everyone and every snake. See, my first time I held a ball python, and holding that ball python was what did it for me. Like I held that ball python. It wasn't scary. I realized, wow, this is kind of awesome. And I got one, and then I kept getting more. Now, I had that misconception with boas, that boas, they're too big, and if I got bit by one, it'd probably be really terrible. So I told myself I'd never probably get a boa. And then what happened was, one day, I went to a pet store. I'd always go to the pet stores. Like, any reptile store in Toronto knows me, and I don't know, from the time I was little, whenever I get depressed or down or something, I just like going to the pet store, seeing the animals, and that's always made me happy. So I went to this pet store, and they let me hold a boa that was in the bag, and it was so awesome. I held it on me, and it was just like, oh my goodness, I thought it's gonna bite me. But same as before. It didn't bite me, and I had a good time. So then for boas, what I decided was, I did my research and I learned about something called a Hog Island boa. And Hog Island boas, they don't get super big. They stay around this size. So this is my first boa. His name is Selkuth, and he's a Hog Island boa. And this is his adult size. I've had him now probably for about 5-6 years also, because I got him probably about a year after Theseus. And he's a wonderful snake. If a snake could be cuddly, I say Selkuth is, because like once he's out for a bit and he's with you, he doesn't want to leave. So then let's talk about boas. I got into boas, and to me, boas was like the dream snake. They're a little bit more interactive, a little bit, to me, smarter than ball pythons are. Ball pythons are nice in a way that, to me, I say the ball python is a snake for a baby to like a 6-year-old. And then after that, I love boas. They give you a little bit more. Like, you take a baby ball python, they don't really do much. You take a baby boa, and from the time they're babies, you hold them, and they're inquisitive. They're looking at what's going on. Like, I'll show you one of my babies right now, and you see the difference from them and ball pythons. This girl. And what's neat about them is, instead of just kind of hiding away, right away, they kind of look around. I can do this. I have a zoom. So, right away, it's just like the head is up. There's curiosity. What's going on? I find them to be a lot more curious and stuff. You know, this one's giving a bad example. But actually it's giving a good example of how chill they are. Lots of people have this idea that boas are a little bit more aggressive, and they're not. They're not more aggressive than ball pythons. I actually find they're less aggressive. They're more calm. They're more sure of themselves. Anyways, back to my story. So, I got that ball python. No, I got the boa Selkuth. He was my first boa. And then I got, who else did I get? I got this one. This is my second boa. She's a BCI Call albino boa. And just to kind of help you understand, the last snake was a pure Hog Island boa. So a Hog Island boa is more of like a locale animal that grows in a certain area, like a Bolivian boa, or a true Colombian boa. Whereas when we look at albinos, for instance, they're called BCI boas, but they're not locale, they're morphs. So morphs, that's when you get all the different colors, hypo, jungle, anery, all these different types, they're called morphs. So when you get into boas, some people get into locales. That's like having a purebred, like trying to find a snake that's super pure, and those snakes over time will have more value. They'll become probably more valuable with time as they become rare in the wild. So it can be important to keep those lines really clean. When it comes to morphs, it's something totally different. People are just trying to get snakes for certain colors. So, and then not understanding that in the beginning, I bought my Hog Island boa, Selkuth, and then I got Sophie, my albino. And I thought, you know, I'm going to breed them together and then I'm going to make Hog Island albinos. I'm going to make these really small albinos. But the funny thing is that's 7 years ago, and now I haven't bred either of them. I haven't bred Selkuth to anyone because I don't want to make mixes. Selkuth is going to wait until I find the perfect Hog Island boa female, and then I'm going to breed him to her. And then this Sophie is finally being bred to a motley het sterling, so slowly working towards making albino sterlings, which will be exciting, and that's just making some fancy morphs. But my philosophy with breeding boas or putting different snakes together, lots of people will want to make the next best thing. They'll want to make the fanciest of this, the fancy of that. Oh, everyone has these, those are popular, if I make those they'll sell. I've never really looked at it like that. I've always kind of looked at it like I want to make the most beautiful animal for me, or I want to raise the babies that can eventually make something super fancy, and it'll take me a long time. So getting into snakes 7 years ago, right from the beginning, I started on like 8-year plans. I'm going to grow these 2 snakes for 4 years. I'm going to get their babies. While I'm growing these other 2 for 4 years, get their babies. Then I'm going to grow up this baby for 4 years. I'm going to grow up this baby for 4 years. And then I'm going to put them together and get this amazing baby. So it's just like crazy amount of time and planning, but that's what I enjoy, and that's how I look at it. Now, with lots of people that have opinions on different morphs, like for instance the spider gene,
shut your mouth.
I'm not seeing those big opinions from people really working with them or that are breeding on a larger scale. We're seeing all these opinions from people that have one snake or have seen a video of a snake in terrible condition. To me, it's just like people. Like, that's how I view it. If I hear that someone is a bad person and they did this, this, and this, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. I try to judge a person according to what I see. Because me growing up, I have my little tattoos, I had a mohawk, piercings in my face and whatever, and I did that so that people would see me and judge me, and if they judged me, I didn't really want to be their friends. So I like to be the last person to judge anyone because I've made a lot of mistakes and did some stupid things in my life. So I try to give someone the benefit of the doubt, and as I get to know them, I see what type of person they are for myself and make that choice. The same type of philosophy I feel with snakes. People, like for instance, if you mix a champagne with a spider, you get lethal animals. You get animals that die. I don't need to test that out. I've seen that, right? With different ways of breeding animals, trying out different things. So, for instance, last year I kept all my pairs together, and then I moved the male here and there. Whereas this year, instead of moving the male, I've been keeping a couple females together and then putting the male in and seeing what happens with that. Over time, everyone that's breeding and keeping tries out different tricks, tries out different things, and see what works and what doesn't work. And just because something works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for another. Just because someone likes something doesn't mean everyone's going to like it. And everyone has different tastes. That's what makes this so cool. So for me, I have my tastes and the snakes that I think are beautiful, and I'm basically working towards making the prettiest ones I can make to keep for myself, and then the other ones that are left over to sell to people as pets that hopefully enjoy them and take care of them as well as I do. And even better, maybe. But, yeah, so that's basically my story, how I got into it and my philosophy on breeding them. When just thinking of them as pets, they make the best pet you could ever have, in my opinion. You only have to feed them about once a week when they're babies, and then as they get older, every 2 weeks. My adult boas all eat every 3 weeks. So this snake eats one large rat every 3 weeks, and she's now like 4 years old, and you can see she's, to me, in perfect condition. I like them a little lean. I don't like them to be like big, chubby, giant animals. I feel that it's better to kind of keep them lean and healthy, and they do well, and even at this size they'll produce a lot better and they'll recover a lot faster than trying to feed them like crazy, get a huge animal, and then after they breed they're going to need like a year or two off just to recover. Whereas an animal at this size, she is the perfect size right now. I don't even really want her to get that much bigger. If she does get bigger, that's fine, but if she stays this size, I'm fine with that. But I'm not trying to push her size or make her bigger. And I basically will take care of an animal like this, and this is her first year breeding. Then I'll give her a year off. Then I'll breed her the next year, give her a year off. And then by the time she's bred about 2-3 times, her babies will be big enough to replace her, and then I'll replace her with a baby, and I'll try and find her a good home to go to that'll take care of her as a pet and not breed her. And that way I'm always, I'm not just using the animal to be my baby maker. I'm respecting it, I'm giving it a good life, and I'm caring about its future and its health and everything. And that's my little philosophy on things. Yay.